We lost another legend. Uh, Tina Turner passed away at the age of 83 today. She was definitely a trailblazer, you know, she's a legend. She's someone to be proud of, you know. What's love but a second-hand emotion? Well, I mean, it's sad. At least she was at that age. You know, it happens. Um, Thing was it's kind of like one of those things where I guess she's kind of fallen off, you know, the radar for a long time. You know, she's had a couple resurgencies in her career. Um, and Yeah, she had that movie with which was also probably Angela Bassett's like really career. Well, I don't know if that wasn't her first big movie, or was it her first big movie? I think she'd already been in a couple of other decent sized movies, but I think that was her first really big one. You know, whenever you play someone that's iconic like that, you know that really sets your career off. I mean, look at look at Jamie Foxx. You know, he used to do a parody of Ray Charles, a really good one on In Living Color. And then he wound up being the guy they chose to play him in, you know, his movie about Ray Charles, Ray. He did a fucking fantastic job. And Angela Bassett, I thought, did a great job of channeling, you know, that strong, that feminine strength, you know, that Tina Turner had. Um, Now, when I was a kid, when this came out, it was like 1984. I was like 9 or something. I was probably indifferent to it. I don't think like I didn't like it or I hated it. You know, I would say, oh, I was a huge fan of Tina Turner when I was 9. You know, it's like, you know, it was all over MTV. I remember that. And she became, you know, she kind of, you know, had a huge career resurgence. You know, yeah, she was. It was, you know, the Ike and Tina Turner, you know, review. And here's the thing about that. Um, you know, of course, Ike Turner, you know, he's an extremely narcissistic person. He really is. And the thing was he was already, if you know, relatively successful musician. You know, well known, successful. Not necessarily huge though. When he found, well, Ida Mae is her, you know, her real name. When he found Tina though, and it was kind of like with his ability to put together a great band, you know, he was a good musician. He was an absolutely horrible human being. Um, and he was a horribly narcissistic person who had found a talent, an unrecognized talent, and exploited her for decades. I think starting in the late 50s or early 60s when they first started. I can't remember exactly when. I want to say like the height of her career with Ike Turner was when they what's that song that had that wall of sound to it? I think it was that famous producer who what was his name? Fuck, now I can't remember his damn name. The guy who went to prison for shooting his wife or something, or his girlfriend. He was the one that invented the wall of recording sound. He put a huge orchestra behind it. I mean, he was a great producer. He was another horrible fucking human being. Um, uh, yeah, I'm not talking about Beretta. He shot his wife too. Or talking about Phil Spector. That's what it is. Phil Spector. Yeah. And they both did that shit. The thing was, apparently, that was one of the things that didn't help, you know, as far as, her getting treated appropriately by her husband. Like Turner was the fact that, even though he didn't want to admit it to himself, I think he subconsciously knew that the reason why he became such a huge success was that he would have never been that big without Tina. And then she wound up stealing the spotlight. I don't think she intended to. People just, were really drawn to her specifically. And she was definitely a pioneering, strong black woman, who also was a hugely talented, a performer and artist. And I think that's kind of, didn't help, narcissism, why he was so abusive to her, which was wrong. It was totally wrong. And the thing was, is I think that she hadn't really, she kind of became, instead of being someone who continued to go on, she had kind of become someone who was considered an oldies act, you know. And I don't think she was really taken seriously as being a recording artist again. And I think that what they said was she actually had a pretty big hit in the early '80s doing a cover of "Let's Stay Together." Al Green's "Let's Stay Together," and it became a surprise hit. But she went on to have an even bigger hit. And her Private Dancer album wound up being her most successful album of all time, without any help from Ike. By that point, I think Ike was basically relatively broke. He was completely blackballed, I think, from the music industry, and the only money he could make was basically touring. And he wasn't really playing like big gigs because it was kind of like Ike without Tina. People weren't really interested. I mean, he could make enough money to get by, I guess, but no, he never saw the money he saw, with Tina. What, like I say, that was another example of a man, taking advantage of, a woman in an era when, women weren't really given equal rights. And that was a point of that movie, was to point out how, courageous and strong she was. And she wound up coming back because Private Dancer wound up being, a huge fucking worldwide hit album. And I think her follow up to it was a pretty decent hit too, because I want to say, but then she was in Mad Max and all that. So she also kind of had become a movie star on top of being a singer, dancer. My parents were big Tina Turner fans. I remember my dad especially was. That was their generation. That was when they were young. Ike and Tina got big when they were still in probably their early 20s. And she really was. She was a huge fucking star in the 80s. And it was kind of like, a second, resurgence of her career. And she not only she come back, she came back and she was bigger than she ever was with Ike, all on her own. And this is one of those songs that I've actually grown to learn to appreciate a lot more of. It's a really good song, not just the lyrics, whatever, just the entire thing. The vocal performance, production quality. The studio musicians did a great job. It was a really good song. Private Dancer was a good song too, but this is the one that I always think of. This is the quintessential, Tina Turner song for me. Is What's Love Got to Do with It? And remember, she had that movie. I kind of like pointed out, what all she had gone through, and so she kind of had another resurgence there in the early to mid '90s. I think What's Love Got to Do It was like '93. I remember it was when I lived on Hammond Drive in Sandy Springs. And we didn't move in there until basically like right after Christmas or New Year's or something. Yes, we were beginning in '93. So it was when I was in high school. Still trying to figure out the radio. It's interesting because of the fact that it's
innovate, excite, thrill. That's what Nissan does.
They always gotta ruin my fucking videos.
Now, is this just for the sake of design?
See, if you hit pause for too long, when you come back, they'll make you watch a fucking ad. Yeah, like I can afford a fucking car. Let's start off the beginning. Now, so apparently when they recorded it, they recorded it. I would assume that they did it on a flat tuning, meaning instead of being an E standard or E flat or D sharp, because it says that it's C sharp in a major mode. So what I did is instead of doing that, because if I get something new, I'll get lost on fretboard. So what I did was I just tuned it down a half a step, because probably when they recorded it, that's probably what the guitarist and the band was doing, was probably the bass player and the guitar player tuned it down a half a step. So I can just play it just like I would in D on standard tuning, except for it's technically C sharp. if I could play it in that E minor relative. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that because it's the guitar parts. Well, there's some delay, which I have my delay. Actually, I have my delay on good heavy. So there's some delay, and there's some chorus in there, but it's a very clean tone. There's no gain on it. It's really just kind of being used as a rhythmic, percussive kind of guitar, and probably in that type of that in between that clucky. Instead of just this guy gives it that I don't think it's like a jazz arrangement. I think it's just. But I guess in a lot of ways, she was, a great inspiration for, she was definitely a pioneer, like I said, for one woman of color in the music business, and she was also, I guess, a very brave pioneer for women's rights, and. I'm not going. Let's not get into a Me Too thing, okay? Yeah, I think Amber Heard kind of ruined that. The legacy. That's the thing is, Tina Turner was obviously, done wrong. And Ike Turner's a perfect example of, your a bit of abusive narcissistic husband who couldn't stand the fact that um, his wife wound up being much more famous, much more, in a way he was kind of like he was the unnecessary part of it. If it wasn't for the fact that they were married, and at those times women didn't usually get work. It was kind of hard for her to get her own rights, and that was the only thing she could do was leave with nothing, and except for her name. She had already built up a famous name. It wasn't Ike Turner that made the Turner name famous. It was Tina Turner that made the Turner name famous. And since she had, it was all her, most of her hard work, her doing, was what built up that brand. She wasn't gonna let it go, and I don't blame her for that. And she proved that she never needed Ike. She did it on her own, so I commend her for it. And I just want to say, rest in peace, Miss Turner. You will be greatly missed. And I guess that's it for now. Tell your mom and them I said hi. Love you, bye.